All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, Am I an Entrepreneur at All? My name is Jeff Murphy. I'm an Associate Director in the BU Alumni Relations Office, and I'm also a proud alumnus of the BU Graduate School of Management. Today's webinar is sponsored by the Boston University Alumni Association and is offered to our 300,000 alumni around the globe. Throughout your career, the BU Alumni Association is committed to helping you define and achieve your professional goals. We aim to do this by providing alumni with access to a series of valuable online tools and social media communities. Particularly as we continue to build this webinar series, it's important that we get your opinion on how we're doing. So we very much look forward to receiving your feedback about today's webinar presentation through a survey that will be emailed to all of you later today. I know we've got people joining us from as far away as Norway, Brazil. I know we've got people in California today, and I'm sure we have a couple of you just down the street here on campus. Please know that we really do want to hear your opinion. We want to hear your ideas, and so that we ask that you please do fill out that survey for us. Before we get going with today's speaker, as always, a couple housekeeping notes to keep in mind. As you know by now, this webinar is being hosted on the Adobe Connect online meeting platform. If anybody has any trouble with the audio or visual portions of the presentation today, I'll ask that you please contact Adobe Connect directly. If you've got a pencil or pen ready, I'll give you a phone number. It's 1-800-422-3623. Today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be made available for on-demand viewing on the BU Alumni Association website, which you can find at www.bu.edu/alumni. And you can actually see all of our previously recorded sessions in a library there as well. Our speaker today is very eager to answer any questions you might have, and you're welcome to submit those throughout the presentation by using the question and answer chat box that you should see located at the bottom of your screen. We hope to get to as many questions as we can during today's session. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, Dan Negroni. Dan's an alum from the School of Management. He's a coach, consultant, facilitator, and keynote speaker for today's critical cross-generational issues, bridging the gap between managers and their millennial workforce to increase employee engagement, productivity, and profits. Dan leverages his authentic, no-nonsense approach and a successful 20-plus year career as a CEO, attorney, and senior sales and marketing executive to reinvigorate businesses and people. His formula incorporates simplicity, teaching both millennials and management how to communicate, build effective relationships, motivate others, create a personal brand, build a network, and maximize their personal effectiveness. Prior to founding his current company, Launchbox, Dan served as a CEO for startup businesses in the health and fitness market and a consulting firm. He also held senior C-suite roles in sales, marketing, and operations for a variety of service businesses in the technology industry. Dan, I really appreciate the work that you've put in this presentation already. Thank you so much for your time, and feel free to take it away. The floor is yours. I will get your slides up and running, and we can get going.
Great. Jeff, I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for having me, and thank you for coming to the call. Can everyone hear me okay? Jeff, you can probably nod in and tell me whether you can hear me okay.
Sounds good on my end, Dan.
Okay, great. I'm still waiting to there we go. There's the presentation. So thank you for that introduction. It sounds like someone I know wrote it. But in any event, I want to thank you guys all for coming. It's interesting that the presentation should be titled Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, Am I an Entrepreneur at All? Because today I have had the most incredible day as an entrepreneur with huge ups and huge downs and then back up again. And I think that's kind of part of the sustenance of being an entrepreneur. And so what I can tell you is the most important thing about being an entrepreneur, and hopefully we'll get to the end of this, is that it comes from the inside out, and how you sustain yourself and who you are while you're being that entrepreneur is probably the most critically fundamental challenge that one can have. And so I think we're going to take a journey to understand that. And again, the more questions, the better. The tougher, the better I like them. I also went to law school, and so I'm a big believer in the Socratic method, and I love being put on the spot. So without further ado, let's move to the first slide. And this slide has a whole bunch of questions um, entailed in what are brand images. And basically it says, what does a successful entrepreneur create? Now up here we have a real list of companies that do something right and something really interesting and cool and are really innovative. But I want you guys to understand that successful entrepreneurs create businesses of all sizes, shapes, whether they be lifestyle businesses, whether they be businesses that serve people, whether they are charities. They are really something that is an extension of what the entrepreneur believes in passionately. And so with that, I'm going to put up a polling question, the first question for you all, and see kind of where you come out with it. Jeff, if you could tee that up. The first question is, we ask this of all seminars, whether we're dealing with cross-generational issues or not. Do you think you are different personally versus professionally? And as the statistics come in here, I will kind of tally. I can tell you the thesis is, okay, this will be interesting to see. Give it a few more seconds to get you all in here so we can see who the winner is. It looks like generally you're saying you are a different person personally and professionally. And generally, that is actually the answer that we get from most audiences. And it's really interesting. But when pressed and when we push people, we talk about fundamentally, when you put on your underwear in the morning or when you put on your clothes to go to work, do you become a different person? Are your views any different? Are what you believe different? Is your philosophy and your core and whether you're a giver any different? And the answer is universally, when we pose it like that, no. Um, and I'm not saying you don't act different in the professional world, but principally who you are really comes through with passion. And being an entrepreneur is, when I cut you, you bleed the ability to grow, lead, and build businesses. And so I like to ask the question and then kind of talk about it philosophically, because I believe the more you can be in alignment personally with what you do professionally, the better entrepreneur you're going to be, the better ability you're going to have to make money, the more in line with yourself you're going to be, and the more successful you're going to be. So without belaboring that point too much, and we can get to it, and ask me tough questions about that as well, we need to look at what are the stats. And I love this first part of what the stats say, because when polled, 5th to 12th graders, actually, this is a recent survey, shows that 3% of 5th to 12th graders, which is a pretty high percent, own their own businesses. And I think that has a lot to do with technology these days, but it's a really cool stat. Also, 38% of those 5th to 12th graders say that they're going to invent something to change the world. That's a really high degree of optimism, which is awesome. And these are the types of things that create a great environment for entrepreneurs to feel safe in and grow their businesses. And then 42% of those 5th to 12th graders say they're going to own their own business. I think it's awesome. It'd be really interesting to see statistically how many are female and how many are male and what we do from a societal approach to that. But let's go on more to the Gen Y, which I think is really the audience we're probably talking to, and look at what you guys believe about owning businesses. So if you look at the statistics, 80%, that's 80%, 8 out of 10 people that are in the Gen Y or millennial generation, which is 20 to 34 years old, think they're going to own their own business someday. That is huge, and it's awesome too. And we're going to find out, do you have what it takes, and what are some tips to help you do that along the way. And then 38% of you millennials today actually have businesses on the side, where you actually have your own businesses that are something separate from working at Booz Allen or Pete Marwick or KPMG or Price Waterhouse or all those types of things. And so it's, or law firms, all those things, which is really cool also. And we find that engagement in companies is decreasing because people want more and they're craving more balance, and they want to make it more about what they are personally aligned with, hence the first question. And also we can see that the workplace is changing dramatically. Virtual, flexible, more technology, and information at your fingertips. And as I sit here now, I can see my 4 meetings from today, all the text flashing by me. and they all want answers. And some are saying yay, some are saying nay, but it's just shocking at how quickly we're going. And there has not been as much change in the world since the Industrial Revolution. So it's a really cool and exciting time, and everyone wants in on the action to be an entrepreneur. So do you guys have what it takes? And so one of the really most important common trait that an entrepreneur has is this, and that's passion. And passion is critical because you want people to be able to see how critical it is that you desire to create and grow this business. And even if you guys, I don't know if you're TV junkies like me, but if you watch Shark Tank, you see that some of the investors there, they're almost just basing their gut investment decision on how much passion that person has for the idea. Of course, it has to be a good idea. And we actually have a client that we coached that was funded by Mark Cuban that he actually in the show said, I'm investing in you. And he was right, by the way. I'm investing in you because you are what you say you are, and I feel it. I can taste it. And that's kind of one of the things. It's not kind of, it is one of the common traits that entrepreneurs have, and probably the most notable to have a successful business, raise money, get employees behind you, all those things. The second thing is leadership is really required for entrepreneurialism and to be an entrepreneur. And so I'm going to ask you my second poll question, Jeff, if you could tee that up. The question is what quality is most important in a leader, or what skill? And you'll see your answers there. I've given you 4 choices or 5 choices. And they are the ability to raise money, listening, communication, influence, or vision. Let's take a little time and we'll see where the numbers come out. I clearly, and when we coach people, we have a clearly fundamental belief of what we think the answer is. All right, so we got some big numbers in there. So it looks like everyone that's on the call is fairly engaged, which is good. So I wish that we actually had the ability to have a conversation that's so much more my style. But it looks like the majority of you, or almost the majority, are saying communication. So I agree with you that communication is one of the most important parts of being a leader and one of the most important skills. And the truth is communication, listening, all those things, and vision, they are all a part of the thing that only you guys gave 2% of the answers to, and that is influence. And the reason influence is so critical is because influence owns mindset and mind share. And your ability to influence is your ability to have people believe in that vision. It's the ability to have people understand what you're communicating about. It's the reason to know that people are actually listening to you. And so if you look at really high effective salespeople and people that can create relationships with other people, influence is studied to be the #1 skill that a leader can have to pull through. So it's really, really critical. So you need passion, you need to have the ability to be a leader, of which influencing is the most important. And guess what? You see this gal hanging there with all of her buddies trying to pull her over this wall. And this is the deal about entrepreneurialism, and being an entrepreneur, which is risk taking is required. It's kind of like that first time, if any of you guys are skiers, they take you to the top of the mountain and there's the biggest cliff, and they know you're going to get down, whether you fall down or lose a ski or get trapped in the snow, you're going to get down to the bottom of the mountain. It's just gravity. But you have to take that leap of faith and risk. And more importantly, what is it within you that can get you comfortable with that? And so the biggest actual fear for entrepreneurs is what thwarts them from being able to take that risk. And so here are some of the fears. It's actually studied. So we've read a lot of reports, we've combined all the articles, and this is what we know the biggest fears for entrepreneurs are. And these fears, they're not any different than anything else, whether you're going to have a relationship, whether you want to have kids, all the big decisions in life, where to move, where to live, whether to invest in a big investment. It's the biggest fear is the unknown and starting and just getting off the block. And it's the same thing as taking that leap off that cliff on those skis. So it's really critical to understand what is holding you back. The other thing is failure. Now, here's the interesting thing about failure, especially in the millennial generation. We don't like failure. Matter of fact, trophies for everyone, curing and solving problems, all the parents, all the people my age, we want to cure the millennial and Gen Y's problems. We don't want them to fail. But if you listen to any leader, whether it's Richard Branson, whether it's Tony Hsieh from Zappos, whether it's the guys at Google's, it doesn't matter. They will teach you whether it's a product issue or not. The best way you can learn is from failing, but yet we're so scared of it. Why? Number three is being your own boss. Yeah, I mean, no one to tell you what to do. You have to tell yourself what to do. And number four is the fear of being judged. And I think we all can relate to this, both personally and professionally. So much of what we don't do is a fear of being judged. And that's why it's critical when I asked you the first question about being personally aligned versus professionally aligned and being in the right moment to know that you're in such alignment that the judgment doesn't matter as much as the passionate objective to achieve what that business goal is or what that idea is or the gift that you're sharing with the world. So, okay, I mean, I should ask a poll question that says, who doesn't have a fear of economic uncertainty or staying afloat? I mean, we all do. We need money to eat, right? It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you read Peak Performance, whatever you read, you know that economic uncertainty, that's a big one. We really, really got to be confident in ourselves to take that fear away and put it on the side, much the self as I've done with every startup business I've done. And then fear number six is just being an imposter or not yourself or not thinking you could do it. And again, a human condition is that we doubt ourselves and we more than likely don't realize how damn special we are and how much we've accomplished. And we frame it about what we haven't done instead of what we have done. And by the way, most of these things are a whole bunch of bullshit. And if I'm frank with you, it's about really throwing that stuff away and starting. And so starting is all about the beta. You guys know what beta is because if most of you are Gen Ys, it's kind of how it started out in software, putting a test out there. You got to try and you got to start. And where you end up and where you start are usually two different things, but it's the starting and the process of starting and the finding the businesses that really make your business what it is and develop it. And so what's interesting about entrepreneurs is none of them are fearless. They acknowledge their fear. They look down that barrel, look to the bottom of it and say, what is the worst case scenario? And then they pick themselves up. They wake up in the morning and they find a way to solve or resolve, or just like water coming down a mountain, they're going to find a way to get to the bottom like that gravity, just like that skier. So you got to look in that mirror and you really got to look. Most of being an entrepreneur is really understanding yourself and being self-aware. Because if you get who you are and you understand the basic of those premises, you can eradicate the fears, live in your passion, be personally aligned with what you're doing in your professional life and get it done. And so you got to ask yourself, am I a big enough boy or girl? And is this what I'm going to be able to do? And I would promise you, if you spend enough time really looking at the basics, fear is holding you back and you can do it, especially in the world we live in. And so I'm going to try and help you how to do it. And what we talk about is entrepreneurial mindset. And as I said, people can say this is squishy. People can say this is soft. But this happens from the inside out. Where do you get mindset? And okay, I'm going to ask you this question and we're going to do another poll and we're going to see if we can get it right. I asked you what the most important thing for a leader was. What do you think the single most important life work skill is? What is it? And Jeff's going to put a question up there and there's going to be a bunch of examples for you, I hope.
Dan, sorry to say, I don't think we put up a poll for that one.
What was...
No, sorry.
Okay, I think maybe we didn't put up a poll for that. So I'm going to ask you guys, though, what you think it is. And you're not going to be able to talk to me, but I know that I've done this thing enough times that I can tell you what the audience says. And they say things like the leadership, they say communication, listening, discipline. Um, some people will say the ability to forgive. I mean, you get every single answer you could think under the sun that you'll get. But really, the most important life work skill is, you see it right there, the ability to build relationships. And so most of the time I'm asked, why is that so? And this is the reason it is so. It's very clear to me. Oh, we lost another picture there. But ultimately, every opportunity boils down to interacting with people, whether it is power, money, information, love, dating. Universally, all those things you must do with someone else. And so it's a human condition that the most important thing we need to do to shape our mindset is have an ability to connect. Without connecting, we can't get partners, we can't build products, we can't have people working for us, we can't raise money, we can't sell to people, we can't do any of those things. And so it's critical to really, really focus on how well you build relationships. And if I asked you another question, the question would be interesting. And it would be, what's the first relationship you start on? And since we didn't poll it, and I'll tell you the funniest answer we get is a chronological answer, which is the first relationship we start on is the one with our parents. I said, no, no, no. For building relationships, the first relationship we need to focus on is from the inside out. We have to focus on our relationship with ourselves. Because if we don't get ourselves, how the heck are we ever going to build a relationship with anyone else? And so clearly, entrepreneurs need to understand these basic fundamental foundations of how to build a relationship with themselves, then with others, to create results. It's very rarely that the mad scientist can have a great idea without knowing how to build relationships and see it succeed. They may be able to get a patent, but they probably need a patent lawyer, a partner, someone to exploit the technology, for lack of a better word. They need other people. And so that's what I want you to start building your mindset first about self. Because if we don't understand ourselves, it's hard to make a human connection or relationship with others. And then it's completely difficult to actually get results that we can measure. And those of you that went to SMG, you know that we're metrics based, right? It's about sales. It's about numbers. No matter what your business is, whether it's purposeful, whether it's about selling products, whether it's about selling services, you must be able to achieve those results. And so you must build the mindset of understanding how you can influence people, how you can, do all those things, take those risks, engage other people to join you in the thing, including in your personal life, your wife to support you, or your partner, or your children, or all those things to take the risk of being an entrepreneur. So one of the things about mindset, and I love this picture, it's kind of a new picture I just got the other day, but it's surrounding ourselves with mindset is so critical. We talk about self, others, and results. You need to have people that push you hard in life. If you have people that ask tough questions, people that are tough mentors, and people that push you hard, you are going to be 90% of the way to where you need to be. So one of the things and one of the skills we talk and teach about when we coach and consult is, for God's sakes, attract to tough mentors that will push you. Create a personal advisory board. You'll see more of that when we talk to the tools that you need. Mindset, if you look at this slide, and I know that the presentation will be available for you, my favorite company in the world, not because I order my shoes there, but because of what Tony Hsieh stands for, is Zappos. And the coolest thing about this chart for me is that I found it after we understood that personal alignment and professional alignment gets results. And that's what great cultures are about. And so the study of mindset and the study of great companies relative to mindset and culture and brand and all those things are really something that when you're looking for your board of advisors, you need to be attracting to. Who else has mindset that I have that can help me be more of me to get to the end of the business that I need. The next slide's a really interesting slide about who you are while you're creating mindset. And if any of you have the chance, I'm going to give you another book, which is called Give and Take by, I think he was a Wall Street Journal reporter named Adam Grant. And Adam says there are three types of people, and he did all this study on venture capitalists. There are three types of people: givers, which you can assume are people that give things, right? Matchers, which are people that there's a quid pro quo. You give me something, I'll give you something. And then there are takers. Takers not great, but they take care of themselves. When we have the dynamics to do some more polling and the time, we learn that surprisingly, givers are the most successful people. And when you look at the other two groups, the thesis that Adam puts up is who are the least successful people? And the answer is givers too, interestingly enough, because takers are taking, they're getting something for themselves, and matchers are making sure they get something. But there are two types of givers. There's givers that take care of themselves first and know that they're so strong that what they have to give is valuable. And then there are givers that give away so much of themselves that they're not taking care of their own house and their own mindset to create and become the entrepreneur. So I think looking at these things inside as to who you are and determining what your strengths are is critical to being a successful entrepreneur. I think we have a question here, right? Don't we, Jeff?
You're talking about a
This is
question
a
that came in
fun
from an
question.
audience member?
No. We have a question for us for the polling, which is what percent of this is a fun one around brands, which is what percent of millennials do you think have tattoos? And the reason I ask this here is because when you look at what your brand is, and we have a bunch of words there, we do this really cool exercise, another way to determine who you are and what you're presenting to the world. The message you want to give to the world about that passion and the ability to influence and lead, it's so incredibly important to make sure that you understand what your brand is and that you're living your brand. So interestingly enough, you guys think that 63% of millennials have tattoos. The interesting answer is that it's a little less at 38%, but I love it, and it's a fun question. And really, tattoos are uniquely branded things, and that's what I'm saying to you about an entrepreneur. You got to pick your words and live by your words. For example, we give our coaching clients the ability to pick three words, and then they go home and they ask everyone around them what three words those people would pick for them as a brand. And it's really interesting to see, do your personal three words that you want to live and be every day that describe who you are as an entrepreneur match the ones the world has set out for you? Just a really interesting piece of homework that you guys might want to do to really start to focus on the core of who you are so you could present it to the outside world and learn all those things. Okay. So we have about 10 minutes left, and what I'm going to do with those 10 minutes before we take questions are going to give you what the commandments that we find work for our clients. If they could focus on just this few core things, they own it, they win it. And the truth is, whether you're an entrepreneur outside of a company or whether you're an entrepreneur inside of a company, like what they call an intrapreneur, it doesn't matter. Or whether you're just trying to be your best self in the world, even in your personal life, these commandments work. Because again, who you are personally is who you are professionally if you're aligned correctly and getting the most out of life. And so here are the commandments. The number one is, if the most important thing in life is to build relationships, well then dang it, go out there and be a connector and master the art of connecting to build relationships. And there are specific tools of how to do it. I don't care whether you're in line at the grocery store, whether you're on the train with someone. I was pumping gas the other day, and I just started chatting with this woman and asking her all these questions and trying to connect. And she just turned to me and she goes, we were on a sales call driving up to LA, and she turns to me and she goes, "You really made my morning." How many of you have the ability to do that in a minute or less? How many of you think that translates to work? I can tell you absolutely uniformly, it will. And so the art of learning how to be a connector, shy or not, no matter what your disposition is, being interested in other people, that's going to work. So here's another fundamental thing that is more important to your generation than anyone else. And it says, put your oxygen mask on first. And this is what it is. You must have an integrated approach to life for mindset with your mind, body, and your career. And that means with body, eating right, exercising, taking care of yourself for whatever it is, and being healthy. And mind, it means having clarity to thought, opportunity to meet people, time to power down, time for thinking, and for career, obviously you get what that is. But you must integrate those things and do it for yourself first. Otherwise, the message and brand to the world is going to stink. And I don't think anyone here is on this webinar to have their message to the world stink. So take care of yourself first. And it doesn't matter who we're coaching at what company and at what level, whether they're a CEO or down to the millennials. And actually, the CEOs are the worst offenders the older they are. Put your oxygen mask on first and send the world a message that you're going to take care of yourself. You can't have passion, influence, and all those things unless you do that. The other thing is you really need to be authentic. I mean, find those branding words, figure out who you are, what you are. This is a horrible picture of draft. Our graphic team did it, and I ride bikes, and so this really does not look like a Peloton for those of you that ride bikes. But nonetheless, you know that when you're in the draft and you're on a bike, you're doing 30% less work. And my thesis to you is if you're an entrepreneur and you are professionally and personally aligned, you are your authentic self, and it is so much easier. So be authentic, be real, connect in the right way. Being your brand. We talked about the 3 words for brand. You need to know and deliver your true self, your brand identity, your brand promise, and a pitch. And the pitch is what we call your 2-minute kind of connection or 3-minute connection, an introduction, much like an elevator pitch, but designed to invite people in. You have to be your brand and know your brand all the time. And having the world think that about you is super, super critical. Another tool to having the commandment. Okay. We talked about Adam Grant's book and being a giver. It's an interesting thing. I'm telling you, focus on yourself, know yourself inside and out. There's an inherent conflict with know yourself, but yet be a giver. But there's really not an inherent conflict. If you know yourself well and you focus on yourself enough to be that in alignment, you are sharing your best gift with the world. And when you share your best gift with the world, especially in business, especially as an entrepreneur, people will march in line behind you and do whatever you need them to do for the common goal of making your business great. So here's a tip. I teach my millennial children this. It ain't about you. In your personal relationships, I've been with my wife 30 years. Actually, we met at BU, and it wasn't until about 5 years ago I realized that. I got to tell you, it's been a much better 5 years than the first 25. But here's the deal about that. As soon as I learned to turn the switch and say, what can I do for other people? Everyone started to attract and influence became powerful, and I kind of could really own and become comfortable in my own brand to have a 100% success rate when we pitch to clients. 100%. Doesn't matter who we're in front of. We usually get a piece of business, whether it's individual coaching, workshops, or corporate consulting. We're having a 100% success rate because we make it about them. Okay? And this is what the next slide is. I don't know if you know what WIFM is, but WIFM is a human condition also. What's in it for me? People want to know. Make it about the other person. This little girl in front of the candy store, I think it's in France somewhere, is saying, I want it all. What's in it for me? And that's what your audience wants to know. So make it about them, especially when you're presenting new ideas and new businesses. Okay, this is probably the most important thing you can do to build and connect relationships to become a connector. And it is lead with questions. I think this is the last one, Jeff, one of the questions, which is why think this is it. Yeah. Oh, we got we did this one already, so maybe we'll just skip it. But that was on the questions, we usually say, why is it so critical to lead with questions? I had a business I was in, which was an insurance business, where one of my partners was making uh, $30 million a year. 30 million, that's right. And he trained and taught me, never open your damn mouth, Danny, until you ask 10 questions. And questions in law school, I learned it's probably, my Georgetown law education, the most important thing about it was to ask great questions. Because in every encounter all the time, asking great questions shows a bunch of things. And I'm not talking about one, but I'm talking about great follow-up questions too. It shows you're smart when you can really listen. It shows you're listening. It shows you're interested in them. It shows that you are present. It shows that you are there to help them. And so clearly, you want to make it about them. And it is probably one of the most important skills that goes to leadership and ability to influence is asking great questions. So for example, let me give you the best one I know. Help me to understand why. That's to an employee, that's to your boss, that's to your wife. If you can understand those things, it will show all the things in the second box, which is you're genuinely interested in other people. You have no excuses all the time. That's what your brand is going to be. You will evoke listening. And of course, people's favorite topic for those of you that read Dale Carnegie, which was written in 1936, is themselves. And so it allows you to connect. And it allows you to really open up great relationships. And that's really what it's all about. So whenever you're at a loss for words, ask a question. Listen, obviously. If you're asking questions, you need to do the other side, which is listening. And I ask this rule all the time, how much percent of the time should you speak? 20% is when you're in a meeting, is probably you want to get the person speaking 80%. That's the rule. You can go up as high as 40, and obviously I'm breaking that rule considerably now, but it is not the way we coach and or sell. You always want the person you're connecting with to do the speaking. And by the way, I talked about Dale Carnegie being from 1936. These commandments haven't changed since the Bible. Do unto others, making it about others, the golden rule, George Washington's rules of civility, which my 22-year-old had to read in the 7th grade. His 50 rules are all about these things. This is not difficult stuff, and they have not changed. Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill in 1936, geniuses. Okay. When you're asking the questions and you're listening, you got to provide value to other people. Again, making it about other people is providing value to them. I know that if you all went to BU, and you're all smart folks, there are things when you meet people in business and in life that you can do to provide value to them. Focus on what that is, make it about them, and give, and it will come back in spades. All right, here's the deal. Don't attract to just any old crowd. And I'm going to use my Rob Lowe quote, and I hope everyone knows who Rob Lowe is. The younger the audience I speak to, they don't know who Rob Lowe is. But Rob Lowe's second book, and I know he's not thought of as a scholar, right? The West Wing and St. Elmo's Fired and so on and so forth. I think Community or whatever other shows he's on. The opening of his second book says this. Alfred Hitchcock said that 90% of the success in movie making is in the casting. The same is true in life. Who you attract to is a unique experience that will shape you and create your mark on the world and what you deliver. If you attract to people that are tough adversaries, mentors, people that will push you, your life is sure to become a Best Picture nominee. On the other hand, if you attract to dullards, people of plain, boring custard, people that are uninteresting, your life is sure to go straight to DVD. You guys get to choose who you are by your brand and all the things we've talked about today. And those are the biggest secrets to being a successful entrepreneur. They are the same dang secrets that occur in life. So create a personal board of advisors and share the mindset. You can even do it with each other from your alumni base, friends, I don't care, people at the soccer fields if you have kids, whatever it is, you should be attracting to people that push you. You got to start habits now, early and often. It's not easy. It's simple. These rules are super simple. They're just not easy. Mindset is about creating habits, habits that build and connect relationships with other people. There are tools out there, and those tools are available, and we all know them, okay? There's social media now. It's not the same as when Dan grew up in the dark ages. You have these tools that you can find people to help you and find information readily available to take you to the next level. Use them. And here's the deal. If you're going to be an entrepreneur and you are going to ask for money and introductions, you are going to be trading relationship capital. Relationship capital requires real self-awareness. That's why we titled it Entrepreneurs from the Inside Out. And the question is, when you look in the mirror, what are you going to do to create all these things for you to get to the next level? What are you going to do to create passion, to deal with risk, to change gears quickly, to have the mindset, to have an endurance like a triathlete, to be consistent, to have a strong self, and to most of all focus on relationships so you can share your business or personal gift? And the question is just that. Do you have what it takes? And with that, these are the kind of various things we do, but I'm going to start taking questions. As I said, we do public workshops, we do individual coaching, and we do many, many corporate programs for some big, big companies. And we have fun doing them, and we, again, start from the inside out in every single thing we do. So, questions?
Great. Dan, we've got a couple coming in here, but again, everyone, as Dan said right at the top of the hour, he's looking for you to stump him. So make sure you take this chance to type in a question using the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. Dan, our first question is from Dina, and her question was about, right at the top of your presentation, you talked about how being an influencer is sort of the most important skill that a leader can have. You then went on, I think basically your whole talk was about how to develop those skills, but for somebody who feels like they need to improve their influencing skills, what are the first two things that you would suggest that person start working on, or tools to help them develop that leadership skill in themselves?
Yeah, I think the two biggest things that I would say is really get in the habit of asking questions and listening. So it's kind of like the rules of, so know yourself is number one, and number two is ask great questions. And the reason for that is the rules of public speaking are the same rules to influence. This is the deal. You need to have three of them, and I'll give you three. One is know your topic, or and your topic in this case, if you're an influencer, is yourself. So know your topic, right? Know your audience, which is number two. So really ask those great questions to know your audience. And number three is exercise that dang muscle every time, everywhere you go. The three rules of real estate are location, location, location. And the three rules of relationship building and practicing how to be an influencer are practice, practice, practice. Same three rules for public speaking. Know your topic, know your audience, practice, practice, practice.
Thanks, Dan. Gretchen chatted in with a question. How do you deal with quote-unquote phishing relationships? So, it sounds like Gretchen's running into people who might be feigning relationships for their gain only versus, looking to build a sincere relationship based on mutual benefit. So how do you deal with those kinds of relationships, and when do you realize it's time to release them, to let go of those relationships?
So that's kind of like growing your sixth sense. Again, question asking is really important. Gretchen, I can so relate to you. I spent a whole career like networking. When I was a first year lawyer, I had a book of business because I was a question answer. And I have given away so much time. But I've just made a decision. My three brand words are bold, in case you couldn't tell, um, inspiring, and generous. And I've just made a decision that I'm going to be generous. I'm a smart giver, so I understand when people are feigning, but I ask them directly. I am the most direct person in the world, which says, what are you hoping to get from me? What are you looking for? Where is this going? How can I help you? Can you explain that to me directly, how this is going to work together? Where are we going from here? Are we just going to do this to be friends or whatever? And what I would say is, you need to be careful and artful in it, Gretchen, but don't be too judgmental because you never, ever know when the connection is going to be an important connection or what's going to come back around 25 years later. Because I can tell you my journey today as I sit here in New York City in a friend's office, um, working with a high school friend, a friend from seventh grade that is connected to another person I knew when I was in, a sophomore in college, connected to another person when I was a lawyer, 20 years ago, and so on and so forth. So I think the answer is carefully, but if you trust your gut and you trust your brand, you will know. You'll know when people are faking.
Diane wants you to know that there's at least one boomer in the audience today. She typed in that she started a business after 30 years of working for other folks, and that her question is about figuring out how to price what she's offering. Diane sort of feels like she's creating a new market along with her place in it. But Dan, any advice for coming up with that pricing structure?
So, Diane, look, I love all this relationship stuff, which gets you to the business, but I love selling and I love pricing and I love business problems. And I think that's the combination of what I love about the world is how do you, so a question about pricing is, again, doing your homework and doing your research and understanding that you are comfortable with the value you're providing. Clearly, there are probably industry standards for margin of what you're doing. If they're not, you're going to have to extrapolate from similar industries. Having those tough mindset board of advisors and asking those people for input or asking, we didn't talk a lot about weak ties. There's a couple of authors that talk about, strong ties are people that you know, and then weak ties or dormant ties are people that you don't know. Probably some pushing to get to weak or dormant ties of people that are related to the industry or that can provide you value. And then, of course, betaing it and figuring it out with customers and what the market will bear. Pricing is a complicated thing, but cost, margins, and then what the market will bear is generally what I would answer that with.
Dan, our next two questions are very similar, related, but a little bit different. The first one is from Marla, who I know. Hi, Marla. She asks, what specific suggestions do you offer your clients to get real clarity on their brand if they're unsure or stuck?
Yeah. Great question about branding, and branding is so critical. Again, it boils down, we can talk about the simple basics. It's about asking questions. One of the things that I've done when I was determining what those three brand words that I have were, is I got 30 people, and I'm fortunate enough to have 30 people that would actually even take my phone call and tolerate me, especially when bold is one of my brand words. But I get them together on a periodic basis, and I'm certainly a giver, but when I need to take, I need to know when I need to ask for advice about my brand. And your good friends and people in the market will give you really good advice about what your brand is. And again, if you surround yourself with those hard mentors, they should be asking you really tough questions. And of course, there's all these exercises about positioning and branding. And all you need is Google to look up, the 5 Ps and all those things. And I would try some of that stuff myself and then kind of take it to my network and see whether they were in alignment with what I thought my brand was.
So our next question is from Alex, and he also asked about, brand and people's perception of it. Basically, how do you get accurate data on others' perception of your brand? And Dan, you just answered that a little bit by saying that you really rely on your peers and getting feedback. I guess I'll alter Alex's question a little bit and sort of say, how do you turn that into data? How do, once you get that information, how are you able to sort of synthesize it in a way that helps you sort of make change?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing I said it right is if you want something, you ask for it. I think the first thing that happened with me with my dad is I asked for a couple of dollars for gas one time, and he gave me $2. And he said, Dan, I said, there's only $2 here, Dad. And he said, Dan, learn to ask for what you want. So the way you frame what you're asking for is really critical. Um, and I think you actually have to give some thought to who's coming with what perspective in terms of what information they're giving to you. So I think that's part of it. I think there are all sorts of ways these days to do Survey Monkey. If you're talking about a corporate brand or a company brand, there's all sorts of ways to really engage your client by helping them or maybe giving them some free work to give you some free perspective. But there's all sorts of but the biggest thing is you got to be out there and be bold and ask. You will not get unless you ask. And the only way you can ask with credibility is if you give.
Aaron asks a question that I think we could probably spend an entire other webinar on. Dan, I'm going to ask you to get your crystal ball out here. Aaron's question is, I know 1,000 people in my business, but I still have trouble locking things in. What am I doing wrong?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I know 1,000. What was the question again? I know 1,000 people, or
I know 1,000 people in my business, but still have trouble locking things in. What am I doing wrong?
So that's a real question where I would use Strength Finder. I look at my top 5 strengths, and then I go into a real deep dive of what's holding me back. There's something holding you back from connecting with the right people and knowing who to connect with, and when you connect with them, getting what you need to get from them. There's some literature on our website about that, but that's kind of that might be something you want to explore with a coach or a mentor.
Dan, thank you so much. We're nearing the end of our allotted time here. We had some great questions, so thank you for that. On a personal level, I'm constantly hearing from our alumni that they've got a great idea or that they've got a dream to start a business. And you've really provided a great sort of framework for people to take a step back and really do some self-assessment in terms of where they are in that process. And so on behalf of the Alumni Association and our 300,000 alumni around the globe, thank you so much for your presentation today. I also want to thank all of our guests for participating. I hope you'll plan to join us for our October webinar session where alumna Marla Grant, who actually was on our call today, as was our November presenter. Hi, Amber. Marla is going to be presenting a session on getting maximum buy-in from your employees, something I think anyone who's ever been in a management role will be very interested in learning more about. And you can sign up for that October session now on our website at bu.edu/alumni. As always, if you or any BU alumni would be interested in presenting a webinar like this for the Alumni Association, feel free to contact me directly at the Alumni Relations Office or by email at jtmurphy@bu.edu. Dan, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, guys, all.
All right. Take care, everybody. Excuse me. Goodbye.